Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Freedom Shift. We are getting toward the end of our 21-day summit, and it has been amazing. So thank you all for continuing to step outside your business and listen to our experts as you discover the keys to have more time, having more money, and living the life of freedom. And I am Janet Clark, your host for the Freedom Shift. And I am also the co-founder and president of inboundsalesgrowth.com. And I am here today with a wonderful speaker who's going to talk to you today about sales, which is something that I know is near and dear to your heart. I would like to introduce Gary Michels. He is the co-founder of the fastest growing sales training company in the world. And it is the Southwestern, oh, Gary, help me out here, Southwestern Consulting Group.
There we go.
Okay, so a little bit about Gary. Gary is a leading motivational expert, and he has impacted thousands of people with his remarkable training techniques for balancing both career and your personal lives. And he's had 25 years of success in selling, managing, and motivating individuals. And he's worked with both companies and entrepreneurs. So he is here to talk to us today about turning it up a notch. 60-day action plan to achieve your goals. So welcome, Gary.
Hello, how are you?
Well, I am doing great, and I am just so glad to have you here today. I know that we've had a lot of finagling for you coming on and off airplanes and being in and out of the office, so I'm really happy that we found a time that you could actually spend talking with these entrepreneurs today.
Absolutely, I'm excited to do it.
So what we'd like to start off with is if you could give us a little background on your sales training company and tell us how you got started and how it got to be one of the fastest growing companies in the world.
Well, I'm very blessed. I've been in sales most of my career. When I was in college, I worked for a company, and about 6,000 college students every summer sell reference books door to door and pay their way through school. And one of the toughest sales jobs you could ever do, obviously, is sell something door to door. And their training is amazing. And I did that for 3 summers and learned how to sell a set of reference books to a family in a town in 20 minutes that cost $300 to $400 and get a deposit and then deliver the books at the end of the summer. And you really learn the skill sets of sales and relationships and referrals. And I was very blessed to, in 3 summers that I did that in college, I earned a little over $105,000 back in the 80s. And where most of my friends would go home and deliver pizza and babysit and do your typical summer jobs, I worked 80 hours a week and really learned the big work ethic. And after that, because of my success, I was very blessed to have gotten the opportunity to work for a company called Great American Opportunities, which is a school fundraising company. Janet, you might be familiar with the kids that sell the wrapping paper and the cookie dough and the chocolate bars. And
hey, I have grandchildren. Believe me, I know every single fundraiser they have.
Absolutely, and I got to interview with this company, which was one of the sister companies of the Southwestern company, and they said, you would go out to schools and you'd sell fundraising programs to schools, and you'd do school assemblies, and I had a kind of an entertainer, and part of the job was selling, but part of the job was actually going out and motivating and inspiring kids to sell. And so anyways, make a long story short, I actually spent 19 years of my life there. Was very blessed to have been the #1 producer in our company of about 400 consultants nationwide several of the years. I learned leadership skills. There's a train in the background, Janet, by the way, so if you hear a little noise, there's a train going on there. And anyways, I was able to learn leadership skills, manage a large team, and also really perfect the skill sets of fundraising. And I'd say about 16 years in, I'd started to have companies that would say, you know what, my wife works over at Apple, my husband works at Google, we need a speaker. We need someone to come speak for our company, and would you consider moonlighting and doing a speech for us? And I got the bug, and my wife said, why don't you write a book? on sales, and I'll be your event coordinator, and we'll travel the country and speak on sales and motivation and inspiration. And when I went to the parent company and said, hey, I want to say thank you for the 19 years you've been there to support me, but I'm going to move on, and if you need me to stay another year, I'll leave the right way. And they actually weren't too crazy about losing their number one person. So they said, Gary, we'd like to financially back you and support you to build the best and most efficient sales training company in the world. And that's how it started. Now, at that point, I realized that I cannot build Rome by myself. And any entrepreneur knows that you don't want the ego of one person. You want to build a team, and a team of people can build something much bigger. And I was introduced to two gentlemen to start, Dustin Hillis and Rory Vaden, who are the co-founders, and Amanda Johns and Dave Brown and Emmy Young and a bunch of people. And what we did is we were able to create an event. It was a seminar out in Santa Clara, California, where we went out for 4 months and promoted a sales training motivational event that wasn't about the ego of one person, but it was called Success Starts Now. And we would go into offices and we would do a complimentary 1-hour training, and at the end of the hour ask for 5 minutes to talk about the conference. And Janet, you know what, with hard work and with the drive and a passion, we put 750 people in the room to hear $400 each, and we knew we were onto something. 8 years later, we now have nearly 100 employees in our company all around the world. We have 5 different divisions. We've done, I believe, 90 events. We have a coaching division where we do one-on-one coaching with people, life coaching and sales coaching, management coaching. We have keynote speaking. We have sales training, consulting, pretty much anything based around growing your business. That's what we do. So that's it's a long, I mean, I spoke for 4 or 5 minutes. It's a long version, but it's a very shortened version of what we do as a company.
So when you work with entrepreneurs and, small business owners, I know you use this ideal wheel concept that you have. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that? Because I think that would be really beneficial for people that are trying to build a business, balance their life, and really find that life of freedom that they're looking for.
Absolutely. So I knew at different parts of my life when I was especially rocking it as a #1 sales producer and manager that I was out of balance. And even when I wrote my first book, Getting In and Getting Out, the concept behind it was I didn't want to write a book that was just about Gary and what he did to be #1 salesperson. I wanted to write a book that talked about what do #1 producers and companies do that the average producer doesn't do. And I wrote a letter to 100 CEOs and VPs of companies and presidents of companies, and I said, I'd like to travel with your #1 producer in your company for a day. And I'd like to have a meal with them the night before, and I had 100 different questions I asked them, like how do you plan, how do you prospect, how do you bounce back from adversity, do you start early in the morning, do you read assistance? I mean, I asked all these different questions, and then I'd like to spend the next day with them in their car, their cubicle, their office, or whatever. And I was lucky that I had 21 people, 21 owners of companies and presidents that said I could work with their #1 person. And when I went out and did this over a 2-month period, I found out a lot, because my concept was if you have a top producer here and you have an average producer here, and the average producer watches what that top producer does and mentors and studies, eventually they may not be the top producer, but they'll get to that level and they'll be better. And all these 21 people had a desire to have balance in their life. Oh yeah, I want to have balance. I want to be balanced. I want to live a balanced lifestyle. However, Janet, not one of them, not one #1 producer had a game plan to get there. And unfortunately, I went through a tough divorce, and I saw, you know what? I was not balanced. I was emotionally not balanced. Work-wise, I was working my tail off. I saw that these #1 producers were hungry for this, and our audiences wanted something that they could use to be balanced. So we created the ideal wheel, and the wheel is like a bicycle wheel. And there's, if you're listening to this or watching this Imagine you have a wheel, and the 7 parts of your life, and I'll say them slowly if you're jotting this down, are your social, which is your your friends and what you do for fun and socially, your career, where you're moving in your career, your financial, a big part of people's lives, their family, their spiritual, their health and fitness, and their mental, consistently learning. And there are a few wheels out there in this world by different writers and different speakers, but mine is, it goes a little bit deeper, and you can read about this in my book, and I can give you information later how they can get the book if they're interested. But is that I created that goes along with the wheel, and the whole concept is once a month you take this quiz and you rank yourself in each of the 7 areas. There's 10 questions, and you rank yourself 1 to 10, and then you add up your scores, divide by 10, and you have a number. So let's say it's 70. You divide by 10, you have a 7. You plot that dot on your spoke on your wheel, and you do that in all areas, and you play dot to dot. And you look at your wheel, you go, oh my gosh, I'm a little bit imbalanced. And the whole concept is a lot of people's wheels go smooth, smooth, bam, smooth, bam. And if it was like a bicycle wheel and you're going down the road, well, what would happen? It wouldn't be a very smooth ride. And what I've learned over the years is if you're weak in one area of your life, you may not realize it, but it's making you weaker in other areas. And so there's a concept of if you do not inspect, don't expect. So this is actually a game plan, a scorekeeping system per se for your life. And you take the quiz once a month. And I used to do it on the 10th of the month. Now I usually do it around the 1st of the month. But I used to do it on the 10th every month because my goal is to be perfect 10. And you take the quiz, and then you actually pick 5 areas that you want to work on for that month out of 70, because we found 2 was too few, 10 was too many, but 5 you're really going to focus on because focus is power. And then you make 2 action plans for each of those 5 areas. So if you wanted to lose weight, maybe an action plan would be drink more water and join a gym. Or you want to be a better prospector and prospect for business better. One might be find a role play partner and practice your scripts. So for each of the 5 things, you want to have 2 action plans. And then, of course, Janet, you got to calendar these things. What doesn't get calendared doesn't get done. And so I always have my students put on the calendar all their action items. And then the last part about it is that you don't just want to look at it once a month. You want to look at it every week. So I usually do a Sunday night review. Cliche is if you don't inspect, don't expect. And it really works. My students and friends and people that come to our events have really seen a major change in their life by getting on the Ideal Wheel system.
So when you work with entrepreneurs, how do you do that? I mean, do you do coaching? Is it mostly training? Do you do online work? What do you find is a great way to, for entrepreneurs to get this information?
So,
Gary freezes up every now and then.
Adrian, who you interviewed, her, yeah, she's awesome. I said, Adrian, I believe in either and as opposed to either or. And so the things that you said, I do all of them, depending on what a client needs or a company needs. So some of my clients are companies where I'll work with a VP of sales, a director of sales, and they want to grow their entire company. And we'll do what's called a research month, and we'll figure out what their needs are. But some of our clients just need a speaker for their big event, or some just want life coaching, and I'll do an information session with them and really dig deep with questions. Webinars, in-person, telephone, ongoing training, whatever it takes to get the job done. But it's all, honestly, Janet, it's all about growing where you're currently at to the next level. And I'm very performance-driven, but the first step is action. So when we're keeping score and when we're monitoring, like I said, if you don't inspect, don't expect, I'm very much focusing on the front end of activity and increasing activity. And if you increase activity in the right areas of your life, then of course the results will come. And once you realize the activity areas that need to grow, then we're going to pour in training and consulting and coaching to better themselves in those areas. So more of it and then better at it.
Yeah. And so, talk to these people a little bit about your ideas about sales in general. A lot of people have been running their own business by themselves, and they have been doing all the aspects of their business. How do you advise people to get their sales to the next level when they are stepping back, taking a look at their business and saying, I know I need to grow sales and I'm only one person here. I have all these other things to focus on. What are some words of advice that you give people?
Well, it depends what kind of business you're in, of course, but the first thing is all about attitude, that don't be fearful of sales. Embrace it. Say, I'm a salesperson, I'm loving it, I rock at sales. It's not a bad thing. For some reason, people have in their minds, and I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way if they're a used car salesperson, but there's something about that label that goes on people that they're fearful to say that I'm in sales. And the truth is, I've worked with salespeople that sell cars, and I've worked with used car salespeople, and they're not pushy all the time. Stuff that people say they are. They're good people. And matter of fact, they're quite trained and to build relationships and sell the way you're supposed to. So the first thing is to embrace salesmanship, that I like what I do. It's the highest paid profession in the world per capita, more than athletes, more than anything else. If you work your tail off, you can make millions of dollars depending on what you're selling in the sales industry. And nothing happens in companies, by the way, unless sales are going on. So we know at Southwestern Consulting, and I personally know that people want. They want to learn to sell better. The other thing is that there's 11 colleges, Janet, only in our country that you can get a major in sales. However, 17 million people in our country claim that they sell for a living, and I would say that's triple that, honestly, because a lot of people won't even admit that they're in sales. So we got a little bit of a disconnect here in that we sell every day, yet we're not trained on how to sell. Yeah. People have taken a course maybe once or twice, read a book, worked for a company where the sales manager got up and taught a few things, but formal training like a doctor gets or a lawyer gets or a psychologist or all these other professions just doesn't happen in sales. So the person has to, whether it's with our company or whatever company it is, that's not important to me, but you have to invest in yourself to learn the skill sets of how to sell. And there's 3 parts to that. And if you're jotting down, first of all, understanding the process of salesmanship. And that's everything from closing, objections, referrals, qualifying, phone skills, presentation skills, initial contact, selling to people the way they want to buy, body language. It's all technical selling skills that are really important. Second, if you imagine a triangle per se, at the top of the triangle's process, because about 60% of what you need to know to sell is in the process area. And then if you look at that same triangle, the bottom left is what's called self-motivation. And that's things like self-talk, adding excitement and enthusiasm to your life, being inspired and motivated when no manager's around telling you what to do. Especially if you own your own business, which a lot of the people on this session and summit are. They're entrepreneurs. They don't have somebody telling them what to do. They're their own boss. So how do you stay motivated? And we teach that. There's techniques and ideas of how to drive yourself and stay motivated. And then the bottom right side of the triangle is what we call self-management. And that's things like planning, overcoming fears, goal setting, accountability. So there's a disconnect when a person thinks they can just go to a session and learn to close if they're not motivated and they don't have good planning skills. Mm-hmm. Or you got probably some people that they're workaholics, so they have the planning down and the goal setting down, but they're not really good salespeople. They're not technically sound. And then you've got others that they have to have a job because their wife or husband wants them to have a job, or the significant other or whoever it is in their life, yet they don't need money. Their spouse makes the money, so they're not too motivated. And so our philosophy is that we're consistently pouring into people, and this is to answer your question, what should people do? They should constantly growing in all three areas. Constantly stay driven and motivated, constantly work on their self-management side of things, goal setting, planning, accountability, always setting higher goals, and then constantly learning techniques to better themselves with their sales skills. And whether you believe you're in sales or not in sales, you are in sales. We're all in sales. If you have a friend or significant other, you're constantly selling your ideas and concepts, and it's not in a pushy way, but honestly, that's how we communicate. We subtly sell what we believe in.
You know, I'm so on board with what you're saying, and you know, when I started Inbound Sales Growth, I really started it to help entrepreneurs with their marketing. But as time went on and I was talking with people and I was realizing that the biggest problem that most people have is with sales, and how sales and marketing so much go hand in hand. And you know, building out a sales team for some people is a hard thing to do, which is where I come in, obviously, to, you know, help people to do that and to actually create sales teams for people. But in spite of that, the entrepreneur themselves is the #1 salesperson in their company. Like you said, you know, everybody is in sales. And even if you do have a sales team, you still have to set the pace. You still have to be the person that is the best salesperson. And it's regardless of who's selling, you know, in your organization, it's really important to get the training yourself and to really know how to present yourself so that you are an example to the people who are selling for you.
Well, someone once told me, and I just really embrace this thing and this concept, and it's your team will do half of what you do right and twice of what you do wrong.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that before? I mean, it's so true. Okay, so if you're leading a team because maybe you got an inheritance or you had some cash flow and you're building a business, but you're not right, it's a disaster for your business because it's going to fail if you're not right. And you know, if you're a person that's late, your team will be late. If you're a person that doesn't practice your scripts and your marketing and all the different things you preach, you don't do it, your team won't do it. And you have to invest in yourself to be on if you want to have a rocking business and a rocking career, because your team typically will only do half of what you do right. It's just a good rule to live by if you're in leadership at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think that sometimes entrepreneurs are really, really good at some skill that they have that they want to bring to market. And they really would rather just do that than be out there facing the clients and bringing in business. And that's okay. You know, if they're stepping aside and they're saying, okay, I know I need to build a sales team. But it's still important that they understand the way that they are selling themselves and what they do, even to their own internal sales force. Sure. Because if these people are selling for you, you've got to be selling to them what you want them to sell for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. There's no argument from me on that one.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned in your conversation self-talk. And I think that's an important point that I don't want to just kind of skip over, because we've had a few other experts that have kind of talked about mindset and programming your subconscious and all of that. So talk to us a little bit about this self-talk and how important is it?
Janet, it's so huge. I mean, when I go do a training for a company, and if we're going to do anything ongoing, the first, and that's what I do with most of my clients, is we do ongoing, because a one-time training, one-time coaching, a one-time keynote, it's like a sugar high. Honestly, it doesn't last. It goes away. So really, if you're watching this series, whatever it is you choose to do, stick with something for a minimum of 21 days, because they say it takes 21 days plus or minus 2 days to form a habit. But honestly, we've got clients that have been with us for 8 years. We got people that work with us for a long, long time, because they say as soon as I stop growing, I start dying. And so I really have embraced the self-talk concept, because I've done a lot of research on this, and one of my keynotes is called Millionaire Mindset, and it's all about self-talk. And I feel so comfortable talking about it. I've probably done that keynote 300-400 times, because I so believe in it. And the concept is this, that somewhere between 60 to 80% of what we say to ourselves when we talk to ourselves, and by the way, we're talking to ourselves all day. You're actually talking to yourself right now thinking, oh, this is interesting. Oh, what do I ask Gary next? We all do that, okay? And so 60 to 80% of what we say to ourselves when we talk to ourselves, believe it or not, is either negative or survival mode. Negative is, this is hard, I don't know if I can do this, I wish I got paid more, I wish you wouldn't do this. It's negative. Or it's what's called the I gotta syndrome, the negative, the I gotta syndrome, the survival mode. I gotta go to work, I gotta be nice, I gotta be on this call, I gotta make money, I need to, whatever it is. And if 60 to 80% subconsciously that's going into our head is negative or survival mode, then obviously our activity, our way of being is going to be negative or survival mode. So with this concept of changing our self-talk through affirmations, which I'll explain to you in a moment, we can pour positive self-talk into our head. It's going to put positive with you, the concept here. And if your listeners want to take out a pen and draw 4 circles. One circle at 12 o'clock, one circle at 3 o'clock, one circle at 6 o'clock, and one circle at 9 o'clock. And above the circle at 12 o'clock, write the word negative self-talk.
Got my pen.
Self-talk going on. At 3 o'clock, that's going to cause you to have a low self-esteem and low self-image. Dress, it might be the way you carry yourself, the way you talk, the way that your body language is, but people can tell when a person has low self-esteem and a low self-image. And if you have a low self-esteem and low self-image at 3 o'clock, at 6 o'clock I want you to write poor activity. The activity and actions you're supposed to do in your business and your personal life are not going to be right. Even in your personal life, if you're married or have a girlfriend or boyfriend and your self-esteem isn't right, you're not doing those flirty, fun, energetic things when you used to do when you first met that person. Your activity is not right, and it's deteriorating relationships. It happens in personal life, it happens in business life. And if you have poor activity at 6 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, you can jot down undesirable results. And it all goes, Janet, to negative self-talk. However, since I am a motivational speaker, shall we say, I don't want to be negative very long. I want to turn it up a notch. That's my whole mantra. Is everything's my books, turn it up a notch. My television, my radio, everything is turn it up a notch. How to turn up a notch in your life and your career. So let's just say that we get rid of the word negative self-talk, and we cross off the word negative, and we write positive. Things like, I'm on fire, I am rocking it, I am successful at prospecting, everybody I talk to wants to buy, everybody I'm speaking with likes me and wants to do business with me. At 3 o'clock, what will happen is you're going to go from low self-esteem to high self-esteem and a great self-image. It's physically impossible to continually doing positive self-talk and have when you have a high self-image and high self-esteem and you walk with a bounce in your step and a look in your eye, at 6 o'clock I want you to write incredible activity. You start working that extra hour, making that extra call, studying for 10 more minutes longer, being a little more outwardly focused and generous and not selfish. All the things you're supposed to do in your life, we know we're supposed to do, but don't have the energy or desire when our self-image isn't right. And then if you put the right activity in at 6 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, I always like to say, because I'm from California, awesome results. And to just for a moment, think about this image in their head, these 4 circles, so that if a year from now, I said, hey, tell me about the self-talk circles, you'd remember self-talk positive equals good self-esteem equals good activity equals good results. Because, you see, self-talk, I like to say, it's like a shield around you. It's like an insurance policy to make sure things don't go wrong. It's like steel, so when bullets come at you, they bounce right off of you. Because when your self-talk's right, you do what we call BBF. And BBF is bounce back fast. But if you don't have the self-talk continually going into your head, and you're watching a lot of television that's negative, and you're not reading inspirational material, and you're not reading your affirmations, and you're just letting negative stuff come in, man, it's so easy to fall off the wagon. It's so easy to get down, and I like to call it the plum disease. Poor little me. This is tough right now. It's difficult. So what we teach people to do in our program is we teach people how to write affirmations that mostly start with I am, and they say them 4 to 6 times a day every single day. It takes about a minute, minute and a half to read them. And so you have 24 hours in your day, and you're investing 6 to 8 minutes to sharpen the saw and say motivated, inspired, driven. Just by simply having a piece of paper, and like if you were sitting here with me in the hotel room, I'll just hold it up so you can kind of see. It's like the paper's kind of wrinkled, and it's like you can see that I use this a lot, and I usually add 1 or 2 a week and change them out, and because there's different things I'm working on at different times. But I practice what I preach, and I read my affirmations daily, and it allows me, when things don't go my way, to bounce back quickly.
That is such great advice, and I totally agree with you. And part of what you talked about with the spokes and the wheel and the different areas, and one of the things that really helped me was to get in touch with my spiritual life, which for a long time was on the back burner because so many other things seemed to be more important. But when I started to recognize that, I have the divine within me, therefore I cannot fail. And life is, here. I'm here for a purpose. And if I can continue to tell myself that it's going to work out, everything turns around. So, it really does matter what you say to yourself.
It really does. And a lot of people, they've heard the concept of affirmations, but they've never really been taught. Like I said, only 11 colleges in the country. So many people don't have the skill sets. They're not taught these things. And literally pouring yourself, because really the only person that can motivate you and drive you, but you're with yourself 24 hours a day. So one thing about affirmations is it's pretty cool. It doesn't cost you any money. It's pretty easy to do. You could do it in your hotel room. You could do it in your car. You could do it wherever. And then you pour on top of that training and consulting and coaching and to continue to improve your head. But your self-talk is just going to keep you moving forward.
Well, in some ways, we have a great audience for this, because these are people who recognize that they do have the power to change their business, their life. They are seeking that shift toward freedom. And so this message is resonating with me, and I'm sure with everybody that's out there. So thank you so much, Gary. It's definitely what we needed to hear, and it's a great way to, as we move toward the end of the Freedom Shift, for people to, take on this great habit of affirmations. I like it. So tell us now about the free gift that you're offering.
And so we've got an ebook that's the 5 of our most powerful tips on how to turn it up a notch in your life, in your business. And we're going to get deep into some content and dig deep into 5 areas that people will be able to see an immediate change in how they're producing, how they're thinking, how they're just being around other people. So you want people in life, actually, to, when they see you, you want them to say, Janet, there's something different about you. I can't put my finger on it, but I like it. And I believe from these 5 tips that we'll be sending out in the ebook, the audience will be able to really go to town with those and see some immediate changes in their life.
Well, that's very generous, and it's a great gift. And everybody, just click on that link below us and get your copy of the ebook, and you'll be very glad that you did. So before we wrap up, I do want to thank Gary profusely for taking this time. And I do want to comment that there were just a couple times during here where the video froze up a little bit, but it didn't impact the flow of what Gary was saying. So I don't want to re-record this interview because the content was so great. But I will, just say, as far as Google Hangouts is concerned, what we've learned, and this is for everybody that's out there, that hasn't quite started using it, or maybe has. Hotel rooms are a little iffy because they're typically wireless, and the bandwidth is a little spotty. But thank you so much, Gary, and your message, even when your face froze up a little bit, we were still getting the words, and it was very short. So I think it was a great interview, and I thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.
Okay. And goodbye to everybody, and we will see you tomorrow on the Freedom Shift. Have a great day, and remember the positive affirmations. They work.